Happy New Year. Let's figure out how to make 2018 the best year ever. Today's episode was recorded live at FinCon. With a big thank you to the FinCon Podcast Network and Steve Stewart for allowing us to use their studio. Today we chat with Jason Vitug, who wrote the book, You Only Live Once, YOLO, the roadmap to financial wellness and a purposeful life. Welcome to Richer Soul, Life Beyond Money, the last baby step. It's about your journey to a more purposeful, intentional, amazing life. Where are you going to go and how are you going to get there? Let's figure that out together. At the core is the financial well-being to be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. It's about personal freedom and abundance. Are you creating the life you deserve? That's the question you need to answer. It happens one step at a time, and it's on this journey where the fun happens. How do we do this? By figuring out our puzzle pieces and how they come together to design a great life. First, being clear in your purpose and core values. It doesn't have to be a massive goal, just what you want. Great health, control over our time, financial abundance, strong loving relationships, and being part of something bigger spiritually. While we all know this, we're stuck listening to those voices in our head that create fears and hold us back from the life we deserve. If you haven't had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create balance in your life. If you want someone to help you put your puzzle pieces together, email me and we can set up a time to talk about your life and how to create the success you want. Please check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/Richer Soul. That's where I share interesting articles that I've read during the week. If you get a chance, visit the website, richersoul.com. You can see all the show notes for today's episode, and you can sign up for my email list. I don't send many emails, but if there's something important or bonus material, that's the best way to find out about it. Before we meet Jason, let's talk about 2018. Are you ready to crush this year? What do you need to do to ensure that happens? Who do you need on your team to ensure that it happens? The theme for this year is profit. You should be able to run your life and business for a profit. That doesn't mean you take more than you give, but rather you give so much you end up with a surplus. Storing that surplus is what builds wealth. I love to have wealth. A wealth of time, a wealth of relationships, a wealth of love, a wealth of health, a wealth of money. If you have trouble with the concept of enjoying wealth in all these areas, you have to work on your mindsets, the voices in your head that hold you back. Too often we look at things in black and white, yes and no. But the reality is, life is full of choices from A to Z. And in the middle is M. We have many choices we can make, and we have to be intentional in them. You have to figure out for you where all these priorities fit together. People in business talk about ROI, return on investment. How about ROL, return on life? Everything you should be doing is with the intention of ROL, return on your life and desires. As I write this intro today, I enjoyed a wonderful day of attending church this morning, a beautiful brunch with my family that was way over the top, and a fun challenge of going to an escape room. We spent close to $500 today. No regrets. It's one of those days we rejoice in. And it's way out of line with what I normally like to spend, but it's okay. It's part of our plan. It's something we do once in a while to enjoy life. It beats the crap out of buying more junk. Today had a great return on life, especially because I spent it with my family. Let's review 2017. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate 2017? If you have a 9 or 10, congrats. Keep up the momentum. Make 2018 even better. If not, what do you need to improve, and what are you going to do differently in 2018? Doing the same thing as you did in the past that didn't create success is not going to magically create success this year. What is going to make this year different from the previous years? What's your number one priority that if you could accomplish it would make this an amazing year? Is it a new job, growing your business, starting a side business, investing in real estate, building better relationships, improving your health, taking control of your life and money? What are the action steps you need to take to make that happen? What are the obstacles that are going to prevent you from achieving your goals? And what are you going to do when you run into a challenge that seems insurmountable? Who's going to help you achieve the goals you want to hit? For me, 2017 was about creating this podcast. I failed in 2016 to launch, so I made it my first goal for this year. I started this podcast in January. I had a coach to help me get through the 2 weeks of chaos to get it launched. We scheduled out all the work that needed to be done and all the other life obstacles that were also in the way. I had another coach to help me with all the technicals of podcasting, and another one to help me with the process and work of being a podcaster. They all helped me to ensure a successful launch of the podcast, and it's been a great year. I've learned so much and got to meet so many interesting people. So let's talk about your daily habits for 2018. The secret of your success is determined by your daily agenda. John C. Maxwell. What's your calendar say about your success for 2018? If we looked at it, does it have all your priorities in life scheduled? We're going to stumble and get stuck this year. It's a given. The secret is to be prepared with a plan for what you will do when that happens. It's kind of like insurance for your life. This year, for me, it's about promotion of the podcast. And I've already been working on that as I ended 2017. Actually, I could use your help. If you enjoy the show, can you rate it and share it with others? Just post a link on whatever social media you use. If you know of other podcasters that would benefit from having me as a guest on their show, can you make an introduction? Thanks. More important, though, for me is spending this last bit of time with my daughter as she sets off to college this September, and gearing up for the last 2.5 years with my son before he goes to college. Then there's some big decisions around what my wife is going to do and what big changes are coming for her. That decision should be made this month and drive where I will focus my time and energy for 2018. The foundations have all been laid. It's time to execute. The reality is, you only live once, so do your best to live life on your terms. Jason left his senior executive role to backpack around the world for 12 months, and then he wrote the book, You Only Live Once, YOLO. I'm going to cover some meaningful highlights from the book before we meet Jason and dig deeper into what he has to teach us. YOLO is understanding what you want in life and then being willing to put the time and effort into that. Jason talks about how social media sharing has created a platform that makes us buy things to impress others versus what really makes us happy. We need to build assets to generate income and sacrifice short-term gratification for long-term happiness in life. Some people think, you only live once, so I should do something, even though it might be irrational. That's silly. The reality is tomorrow is just as important as today. When you go into debt, you're spending from tomorrow to enjoy today, and that can lead to massive troubles tomorrow. Jason talks about your relationships with money and your money mindsets. You have to answer the question, What is my relationship with money? Is my spending contributing to my life? How am I spending my time? Is my mindset creating abundance? There are needs and then there are wants. Keeping your lifestyle in check and also seeing the value of experiences versus things and stuff that clutter our life. Jason says you need to know your values and have a vision for your life. I concur. Are you spending based on a habit? And are you saving based on habits? Is shopping making you feel better for a moment until the credit card bill comes? This is what we call needless spending. I have to say, if Jason hadn't written this book before I began the podcast, I would think he was stealing my thoughts. Hopefully he doesn't feel the same way about me. Are you aware of your spending? Do you know where your money is going? Jason asks, what does freedom mean to you? He says, know your numbers, know your dream, set your goals, run the numbers for that, allocate your spending. Jason also talks about having better conversations with people you admire about things you can control and improve that push you forward. Move away from negative conversations that pull you down. Be mindful in the moment and enjoy life through its ups and downs. Be deliberate and spend the time where you want to be. Learn to observe and listen and understand instead of reacting. Build your wealth and remember, it's easier to save than it is to earn more. Finally, go enjoy life. Let's meet Jason, live from FinCon. Welcome to Richer Soul, Jason. It's great to have you join us today.
Rocky, thank you so much for having me here.
So let's start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, I knew nothing about money growing up. My parents never had that conversation about money, personal finance. So we could talk about anything and everything, but money was not on the table. So that's how I started the relationship with money. And in high school and through elementary school, there was no money financial education. So I really started with zero knowledge of money. All I knew was I wanted money to go buy things.
Interesting. And so where and how did you start to learn about money then?
My first experience was when I got my first paycheck. So when I got that physical paycheck from working, exchanging my time for money, that's when that aha moment, okay, so I need to deposit this into a bank in order for me to get cash out or use that debit card to make some transactions. And so that is where I started getting interested in terms of like the banking system, like how does that work? And I mean, I ran to the bank around the corner just to open up a checking account in order to get that debit card. And eventually, my relationship continued on when I started taking on student loans to attend college. So from banking to student loans to being in debt, and I said, I really need to handle my money. And so a lot of self-learning, but also working in the banking industry and meeting and learning from members and customers, because I worked in credit unions, that taught me how to better handle or manage money better.
And you spent years in banking, and you moved up the ladder pretty far, and then all of a sudden you're about to become the successor CEO, and instead you resign and go backpacking for 12 months. What is that all about?
Well, I'm a true millennial. My parents instilled in me that the importance of experience. But also with the issue of being in debt and having massive amounts of student loan debt, $40,000 of student loan and credit card debt when I graduated. But I chose banking because I thought that's where the money was. So I left filmmaking to go chasing money, and I moved from a teller to VP of marketing and business development in 3 years. So yeah, I went from like taking deposits behind the counter to making decisions in the boardroom in 3 years. And that was with a lot of hustle and a lot of focus and ensuring I got the experience. So with that said, I was very successful in building that credit union into the $110 million round. And I was selected because they wanted, of course, new young blood to take on the executive role. And I really wanted to figure out what my purpose was. in life. And so when they offered me the successor role to be the CEO, to take over when the CEO retires in a few years, I took a step back and I said, is that the path I really want to take? And so instead of taking that role, I resigned. And that's how I ended up backpacking.
That had to be scary.
It was, because it took me 6 months to actually, from the moment I gave that resignation, 6 months later, that's when I left. So it wasn't like, here's my 2 weeks, I'm gone. It was scary because, they're saying, are you sure you're no longer going to have income? There are all these benefits that you're going to miss out on. And my credit union wanted me to stay. So they kept giving me better offers to stay. And so every month I'd say, okay, I think this is the last month, until I finally decided to buy that plane ticket to go overseas. And that was in January of 2012. Where I called up my CEO and I said, this is it. And she goes, oh, you've been saying that for months. I'm like, no, I'm at the airport. I'm ready to go.
And I guess what turns you off from, essentially you've got the American dream. It's all perfect. So what turns you off and said, no, this isn't my vision?
I think there's a moment in all of us where when we reach, especially being in debt, and having this horrible relationship with money, and then figuring out kind of like this equation to save, to start investing, to become financially secure, you get to that point where you start asking yourself, am I taking this right path? I started thinking about, I switched from filmmaking to banking. Now I was in the banking industry. Am I going to continue this on? Am I going to be 50 or 60 wondering whether or not I made the right choices? And so I had to take that leap of faith. But I didn't know what I was going to be doing when I returned. And I honestly didn't know that I was going to be gone for a year. It just ended up, 20 countries, 12 months. Amazing experience.
Sounds like an amazing experience. While you were gone and on that trip, what kind of revelations did you have that kind of helped you decide more so what you wanted?
So I like sharing this story because it is that moment where I had the aha. It was that epiphany. I was sitting on top of this 8th century temple, staring at the 5,000 temples, pagodas, and stupas. And it was that moment I asked myself, how did I get here? Where was everyone else? How did I, that was indebted $40,000, that grew up in an inner city, that lived in 7 different homes, that had this horrible relationship with money, how did I get from where I was to where I am today, that I could say no to a successor CEO position, where I could travel around the world? And it was really at that moment where I had that aha to say, it was through financial knowledge. The more I knew about money, the more empowered I was to make better decisions. And what's interesting is that all kind of worked itself out to saying, how can I help other people? So it was sort of like, I tend to think that purpose is serving something greater than ourselves. So when we can take care of ourselves, right, which is important, and financial wellness is part of that, then we can serve our purpose, which again is something greater than ourselves. And for me, it was that community.
And so that's something we talk about at Richer Soul, is knowing your purpose. And when I talk to people and I ask how many people know their purpose, I'm guessing the numbers are around 2, 3, 4, or 5%. Most people don't. What advice do you have for people to figure out what's my purpose?
I want to take a step back and say, you don't have to feel financially secure, or your money has to be in the right place in order for you to start thinking about your purpose, right? It's a good component, because when you're financially secure, it's much easier, and your mind is freer to think about serving something greater other than yourself. But I don't want people to stop and go, okay, well, you know what? I just need to focus on getting my money in order before I can think about helping others or serving something greater. What I suggest to most people is figure out what your interests are. So first, there's that word, the passion, right? Follow your passion and work on your passion. You'll never really work a day in your life. And people go, well, how do I find my passions? You find your passions are based on your interests. So I like telling people, look at your interests. What are the things that you're interested in? Devote time, effort, and resources to those interests. You now have passion for that. Once you serve those passions and you're happy, you're satisfied, and then you realize some of the things that you're interested in can actually help other people, that is serving something greater than yourself. So I'm passionate about personal finance, I'm passionate about travel, and my outlet is writing, my outlet is videos and doing events, and thereby I'm serving my purpose, which is helping and empowering community and a generation by virtue of doing the things I'm interested in.
I think some people struggle with how big a purpose needs to be. In other words, I think, we always think of number one. And so my purpose needs to be the best at X or the best person here or there. And I don't think that's necessarily so. You can have a smaller purpose, but if it's your purpose and you're happy with it and content, then that's cool. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I'm nodding and smiling at you because that's absolutely it. We tend to say we can't serve something greater or serve our purpose because we're thinking of something really grand and huge, and we're thinking about our role as whether we're going to be that Steve Jobs or the Mark Zuckerbergs who are doing like these who have done or doing really great, huge, grand things. But I like people to take a step back. That's why I said it's serving something greater than yourself, and that's what I think a purpose is. So it can be very small, it can be very large, and again, you decide kind of like the extent of which or the depth of which you get to serve that.
And so if we have to decide, then we have to take the time to actually do that, to sit down and think and map out what that all means. And I think a lot of people get so stuck up in the rat race that they don't get the chance to sit back and say, what is really important to me? You kind of follow a path, like you followed a path and had success. And then you sat down and actually thought about it and said, no, I'm in this place. And I think for a lot of people, you did it at a young age. I think a lot of people do that at age 40, 45. It's like all of a sudden they're like, what happened?
I think we all experience it, as you mentioned, in various stages. Yeah, I experienced this in my mid-20s and early on. I think it's because everything I did was very fast-paced, and the fact that I was stressed about like my debt situation, stressed about not being able to fully live out my dreams. I like to tell people to look back when they were teenagers or they were kids. Like we're filled with hopes, with dreams, with thoughts and ideas of what we would like to do when we're older. But for some reason, by the time that we're 18, 19, and we've made that first financial decision, going to college and taking on that debt, we start thinking about other things that take us away from our childhood dreams. Then you get into that rat race, as you mentioned. So now we're kind of just going with the motion, and time flies very quickly. And so I think it's important to really take a step back and just take a step back. And for me, I was caught in that corporate, climbing up the ladder, becoming an executive rat race. And then when I said no, I was able to take a step back and reassess. And that time was so valuable to me to figure out what my next path was.
I think that's the important thing. You've got to stop, take the moment, and think, and do that. I read a statement on your website. It said, I don't want to wake up one day realizing I chose comfort over serving a purpose. And I've sometimes heard people say that the enemy of great is good, which means when we get comfortable, it prevents us from the real success we could have.
Yes, I think because we're all risk adverse, right? So we're programmed to protect ourselves and not to take on risks. And I mean, that goes with everything, with life, with investments, etc. And so I wanted to make sure that I continue to push myself, like my comfort zone. I mean, part of that was coming from where I was to making a six-figure salary, then saying no to that. And that was very risky. And that was out of my comfort zone. But it has opened up the world and the opportunities, the people that I've met that's truly enriched, my life. When I say that, I don't want to wake up in that moment where I chose kind of to be safe and realize there are all these missed opportunities, all these hopes and dreams that I had that, I missed out on. And now I'm older and my hips hurt and I'm unable to climb up, a mountain or to go hiking. So I wanted to make sure that I always push myself past my comfort zone.
What you did is scary, and I think a lot of people are probably going, that's nice for him. I can't do that. I have obligations. I have all these things, which kind of brings up the thing. Along this journey, as you make these choices, you end up in the suck. Things aren't going well. How do you enjoy life in that moment when it all seems like it's going to explode?
I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, and I never realized what a roller coaster ride this was going to be. And so there are moments where it's extremely wonderful, and there are moments where I'm actually in tears going, I chose this really hard path. But ultimately, what keeps me going and what I advise everyone to follow is get clear on that vision for your life. And I talk about it in the book. It's like, have that vision for your life. Take all your hopes and dreams, your thoughts and feelings, and start crafting that ideal lifestyle that you hope to live. And that becomes your why. That becomes kind of that target, that destination. And that vision will change, and will change because you gain new experiences, you learn new interests. But having that clear vision and knowing that you're working towards something can help you kind of rummage through all the things that happen in life, all the unexpected things that happen in life. And so when things are horrible, things are not going your way, think about that vision, think about that destination, and it's going to keep you moving forward.
So you've got to be clear on your why. So after you wrote the book, you went on tour across the country, and you got to talk to a lot of different people. What did you learn from all those conversations?
What I learned was that we're all very similar. So it doesn't matter if you grew up like me in an inner city in New York City metro area, or you're in the middle in farmland in Iowa or Ohio, that we all have hopes and dreams. We all have specific thoughts and feelings about money and about the things that we want to accomplish in life. And what those are may be different, specific to ourselves. But the challenges can be similar. And so what I learned is that there are more things we have in common than we have in differences. And again, money issues, because that's what I focus on a lot, aren't unique to us. There are nuances, but all the money issues that we're experiencing, someone else has experienced, and that people are so uncomfortable talking about money because it's so personal. And so that goal was to break that taboo, and realizing that people start getting comfortable. When I start sharing my story, they share their stories.
Well, very true. When you share your story, people are more likely to share their story. I just find it funny, and I heard someone say, people are more comfortable talking about sex than money, which is kind of odd.
Yeah. So like I said, I was able to talk about sex and drugs and alcohol with my parents, but not about money. So imagine that. And so I could be in a dinner or social setting, and people will talk about politics, or talk about sex, but then I go and I always put a wrench in the conversation. I'll throw a wrench in, and I'll go, "What's your credit score?" And so my friends have this thing where they make fun of me because I'll talk about credit score, I talk about savings goals or net worth, and they're like, "You're crazy." But I only do it just for the shock factor, and you see everyone tense up, and I'm like, how are we so afraid of this 3-digit number, but we can talk about how many individuals we've slept with? It just boggles my mind, and so that's part of the conversation. And since my target is millennials, they get excited and interested in that conversation. They're like, yeah, that is true. They get that aha moment. It's like, why? And I go, let's go deep. Why do you tense up when the word credit score or net worth or how much money you make happen? Because that draws you into your relationship with money, right? And your thoughts and your mindset on it.
So my credit score is somewhere between 750 and 800. But
Congrats.
I'm a Dave Ramsey believer in that your credit score is a sucker score, because it means you're a sucker for debt, and that's what they're judging. How much debt can you get into? And so to me, I don't really worry about my credit score. I don't fuss over it. The only reason I know it is because occasionally when we do a mortgage or something, it pops up when we're doing commercial stuff, and I see the number. I'm like, oh, okay, it's all cool, whatever. It bounces up and down. Or sometimes it's more like, how the hell did my wife get a higher credit score than me? I don't even understand. I'm the one who takes care of all the finances. She's on all my credit cards. And it's just a number. For net worth, you know what? I think part of this is it's all judging, right? Because then everyone starts stacking up to everyone, and then they start feeling, oh, well, you're better than me because you make more money than me. And I think we need to start separating financial success from life success, because I know a lot of rich people and I don't want to be them because their lives suck. They don't have balance across everything else. Their relationships are a mess. The way that they deal with their kids is a mess. Their health might be a mess. They don't seem to be at all connected and serving bigger purposes. They're like chasing a dollar. And so to me, that becomes kind of a useless life.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I knew why I liked you, Rocky. So one, I agree with you with the credit score. And I tend to like, everyone focuses on that so much that it's like, that just tells me how much credit you would get access to, which could lead to long-term debt, which leads to working more hours in order to pay that debt. Thereby, you're having less fun or less time to work on the things that you're passionate about. I do see, too, that we have these money conversations on social media, in group settings. We might not talk about our net worth or our income, but we show it in the cars we drive, the clothes we wear, the vacations that we take. And so what I'd like is people to be aware that we're having these money conversations and that those subtle money conversations or subconscious are impacting our decision. So if I go and I see someone going on a worldwide vacation and I'm going, I want to do that. Well, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't have the money or the resources to do that. But then I use credit cards to go fund my worldwide travel because I saw someone else doing it on social media. And so I want people to be aware. In our conversations in the book, I really focus on that awareness aspect. Understand what your values are, what's important to you. Because I too have met millionaires who are so unhappy in life. And I go, well, I don't just talk about creation of wealth, there's the health aspect, and I talk about life and financial goals. And I would say, like, life goals are extremely important. And let's handle your finances. But what is that vision for your life? That vision for your life isn't, I want $10 million sitting in a savings account. Well, what do you hope to accomplish with that? And what can we do today to help you feel happiness, to feel satisfied, but also like you're working towards kind of like a lifetime of those moments, not just that one moment.
Very true. And I think people do need to make that conversation of a choice now versus debt versus what it does to you tomorrow. And I don't think people tie all those things together. If I go into debt now for this vacation and I feel good for a week, how am I going to feel for the rest of this year when I've got a $10,000 credit bill that's eating at my head every day? The one thing people don't talk about, maybe imagine your life if you didn't have a mortgage and a car payment and all that free cash flow. What would you be able to do and how would you be able to enjoy life? And then think about how much those payments are holding you back from the life you truly want to lead.
It's absolutely right. And I mean, it took me a while to understand that debt was reserving my future time to work rather than fun. The more debt you have, the more debt you hold, that means you're required to work hours into the future. So when you start thinking about your retirement, you start thinking about the things you want to do with your time, well, the more debt you have, the less opportunities you have with your time. Really be mindful of that. And I do see people that they'll get a bonus at work and I go, you have $5,000 in debt. You got a $5,000 bonus. Pay it off. And they're like, no, it's just such a huge chunk. And I go, let's do the math. Imagine if you had zero debt. You're no longer making that monthly payment, putting that money aside, you will get back that $5,000 and you're creating a habit of savings and then a habit of less dependency on credit. It's a really crazy thing that I see.
And I think that comes down to something that we talk about a lot, which is money mindsets. It's very difficult to change our money mindsets. What have you found and have you had success in helping people change their money mindsets?
So mindset, and I know you know this and your audience may know this, is the set of beliefs that we have that impact our financial decision making, our behaviors, and creates our habits with money. And so it is really the root of why we use credit. It's why we don't save, why we live paycheck to paycheck, or why we're successful investors, right? And so what I realized with mindset is going deeper with a why. So let's look at your action. Why is it that whenever you're stressed, you go to the mall and you spend money, or you're looking for the next shopping item on Amazon, right? Or like something to buy. So let's look at the reasons behind it, the why. And then we realize at that point, it might be an emotional need. It might be like, you're stressed at work, and making that purchase makes you feel like you're in control. And that stems back to your mindset. And so I like to help people look at the habits that you don't like, or the habits that you want to have that you're having difficulty with, and asking 5 levels of why. So why isn't that I don't save? Oh, because I don't have the money. Well, why isn't that you don't have the money? And you go through that process, and you get to start understanding the reasons, kind of like, again, your thoughts, your feelings, your relationship with money.
And so you've got to take the time to sit down and have those intentional internal conversations. So it's turning off the TV, creating the space, putting it on your calendar. And if you want to do this, so the simplest thing is to say to yourself, tomorrow at 6 p.m. after dinner, I'm going to go to my living room, and I'm going to spend 15 minutes thinking about why I do the things that I do. When you do it that concretely, it helps to create more space and time in your mind of making sure that you do something. Switching gears somewhat, the name of your book is You Only Live Once. And that sometimes creates an issue because people say, I only live once, so I should just do it, even though it's irrational. How do you overcome that?
The reason why I chose this book, because YOLO is a term that millennials use, but YOLO comes from you only live once. And you only live once is a phrase that we didn't create. It's been around for a couple hundred years. So that term is something that we co-opted and said, but we use it for mindless spending sprees, for careless decision making, for saying that we're seizing this moment because this is the only moment that we have. However, when we truly understand the context of you only live once, it means this is your lifetime. It's a lifetime. And so when we make better decisions about our lives and about finances, we then have a lifetime of moments and not just a moment. So those moments where I go out and I bought that BMW, which was way more than I could afford, I went YOLO, but then all of a sudden I'm making $1,000 payments on this, including insurance, and my experience was more stress than the enjoyment of the vehicle. So you only live once means crafting a lifetime of moments, happiness, satisfaction, as opposed to that one singular moment.
Very cool. So what's next for Jason? What's your next project?
So my next project is creating more engaging content to share. So I want to do more videos to kind of get this message out and get people entertained. But also I'm working on the second book that gets people into thinking about finances, a more practical step-by-step approach, and a third road trip across the country. So a lot on the plate, but a lot of things that I'm fully interested in and passionate about and serving my purpose. And you'll see me on the road, you'll see me online, and you'll see me on more videos and news.
If people want to connect with you, learn more of your wisdom, and follow you, how do they go about doing that?
If you want my personal musings, definitely encourage you to find me on social media. So at Jason Vitug in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are the 3 places I frequently post. And I do encourage you to go visit Frugal, that's PHROOGAL.com, and roadtofinancialwellness.com for all the events that we have all across the country.
Thank you for joining us today. It's been a blast having a conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Rocky, for having me.
I encourage you to check out Jason's site, frugal.com, spelled PHROOGAL, and his book, You Only Live Once, The Roadmap to Financial Wellness and a Purposeful Life. You can also find Jason at social media at Jason Vitug, Vitug. You only get one chance at this life. You need to take the time to figure out what's important to you and start building that life. Here's our action step. What is one small step you can make this week to clarify what you want in life? If you've already got the plan, then just take a moment to review it. I have a financial and life plan. It makes it so much easier for me to execute because I know what I want and I'm willing to share my plan and get help. I find some people may have a financial plan, but it's just a number to hit at some point in the future. Life is about much more than a dollar goal. Knowing and pressure testing what you want from life is much more important. By taking the hard task of creating my life plan, I can now execute. When I get stuck, I get people to help me through the hurdle. A coach helps me to cut time and mistakes out so that I can hit my goals much faster. Do you have a roadmap for your financial wellness and purposeful life? Do you want help creating one for your life? Reach out and ask me for help. A 2-hour session can get you on track quickly and offer you steps to take immediately with the resources you already have in front of you. The most you can lose is a little bit of time and money. Your loss is minimal. Your gain is unlimited. It's an amazing life. Think about that. What's your amazing life look like? You can go back and listen to some of the coaching episodes, where you can listen in on a coaching session. Some of the behind-the-scenes details are missing, but you get a good idea of what a session's like. What's preventing you from moving forward, and who are you putting on your team to build the life you deserve? Ready to take massive action in 2018? I'm here to help you build your path and create the life you deserve. Is there someone you know who could benefit from what we talked about today? Please share. It helps you to build social capital and create better relationships and start better conversations with the people you know. They will appreciate it. You can also check out the website, richersoul.com, for today's show notes and links to Jason's site. Thanks for listening. You can always get me at rocky@richersoul.com. Have an abundant week and a great 2018.